Hi, everyone. We have author Jo Cabey here, and she's going to tell us a little bit about herself.
Hi, good afternoon. Well, my name is Jo Cabey. I am a native of New York City. Professionally, I'm an educator, and I just recently released my first book entitled Jada's Diary From Growing Pains to Found Promise.
All right, you have the book with you?
Yes, here we go.
And what inspired you to write this book?
So I initially thought about writing this book last year. I went to therapy for the first time, and she had me doing a lot of exercises, like writing exercises just to get my thoughts out and to help me with the things that I was going through. And I realized that I really enjoyed writing in like that creative way. So I just woke up one day and I was like, you know what? I'm going to write a book. I didn't really think about it before. It wasn't anything like that I had planned, like, oh, I'm going to start writing a book this year. No, it just like happened just with everything that I was going through during that time. It just felt like this was time to just write a book and get everything out.
Okay. And how long did it take you to finish?
A little less than a year. I started July 2019 and I finished on May 30th, 2020. So
Wow.
yeah, not
And are
quite
you
a year.
self-published?
Yeah, I self-published, I solo self-published. I did pretty much everything on my own in terms of getting it out, getting it online and everything.
Nice. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And how'd you come up with the title and the cover?
How did I come up with the title? Well, I had the author, the main character, Jada. I had her name probably midway through writing. I decided what her name was going to be, and I knew the way that I was writing it. It was like she is retelling her life. So Jada's diary, that part was a little simple for me to come up with, but the subtitle, I remember I just got a notebook and I just kept writing words of what I thought would connect and how the story told itself. And it took me about a day to like piece those words together. But from growing pains to found promise, yeah, that was what I came up with. And it fits how, the book flows and what it truly means and talks about. So yeah, that's how I came up with it. Just a brain dump.
Wow. And how about the cover, the illustration?
Oh, the cover. Well, so I did outsource for the cover, and the
Okay.
only thing that I knew is that I wanted a chocolate woman on the
I know that's
cover.
right.
I said she needs to be chocolate, and I wanted to have a skyline in the background because the story is mainly set in New York City.
Okay.
Um, and I knew I wanted it to be bright. So those were the only three things that I told the artist when I said, "Hey, this is what I want. Like, she needs to be black, New York, and a bright. I wanted it to, stick out." And she did her thing. She pieced it together and made my vision come true because I'm not really artistic. So it was really nice to be able to tell somebody, the thoughts in your head, and she was able to bring it to life. So I'm really excited. I love the cover.
I like it too. So tell us a little bit about Jada's diary.
Yeah, so Jada's Diary, it is a fiction novel. I wrote it in a fiction way just because myself as a reader, I enjoy reading fiction books. So I wanted to make sure I wrote something that felt right for me and not like forcing myself into a box where I knew that I couldn't be. Like, because of the fact that I read a lot of fiction, I kind of had an idea of what fiction should feel like when you read it. So yeah, that was how I decided the genre. And it is a story that is based on my actual life, but I told it in this fiction way, just to, again, not not to put myself all out there. I didn't think it
Right.
was appropriate for me to write an autobiography because nobody knows who I am. So putting it in a fiction way, I think, definitely still got the point across for my objective with this book. But yeah, it's just pretty much about, like, as the subtitle says, like, from growing pains to found promise, going through her life, and the hills and the valleys and the high moments and the low moments, and the smiles, the heartbreaks, everything in between. But at the end, her realizing that everything that happened in her life obviously was for a reason, even though she didn't see it while it was happening, but now able to look back and be content with how things went for her.
Okay. Now, will this be a standalone or is this going to be a series or you don't want to tell?
I don't mind saying I do plan on making it a series. I actually started drafting this part two.
Nice.
So I'm really hoping to be done with it in a few months.
Okay.
So I kind of like I want to continue while I have this momentum
Mhm.
because I think that's important too. And I've been getting good feedback. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna keep writing.
Okay. And the readers love, well, you're a reader as well, when part two or part two, part three, part four is not too far behind,
Yeah.
because especially when you read a lot. So we'll read that, we'll pick up
Hmm.
another book, and then we'll be like, okay, I want to read part two. What was it about again? So
Yeah,
that's
right.
good. Where can we purchase your book?
So the book can be purchased on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Apple Books, pretty much all your major retailers. The book is also available on my personal website, journeywithjo.com. And if you get it there, you'll get a signed copy and it'll be shipped from me. But it's also available ebook as well on the retailers that I just mentioned.
Did you experience writer's block?
I didn't necessarily experience writer's block, but there were a lot of points in times where just I wasn't motivated to write,
Okay.
or I was writing about something that was a little bit difficult or personal, and I just like, oh my goodness, I need to take a break. But I didn't get writer's block in the sense of not knowing what to write because before I started, I made an outline of everything that I knew I wanted to talk about. So that made the process easier, but there were definitely moments where I had to like close the computer and come back at another time.
Okay. Now, being that you're self-published and this is your first book, how was that? Was that hard or?
Um, it was time consuming. I wouldn't say that it was hard only because the pandemic happened, and before the pandemic I was 100% fully ready and saving my money to pay a publishing company to do everything for me. But since I was at home for pretty much since everything got shut down and started doing research, and I said, well, you know what, maybe I can do this myself. So it definitely took a lot of reading and a lot of just like following up because this is like my baby, this is my first book. I didn't want to I didn't want to come into like any copyright issues or, not have the book available where I say it's going to be. So I wouldn't say hard, but definitely you got to make sure like to dot your I's and cross your T's in terms of, making sure all the steps are there to get to a finished product like this.
Okay. And is there anything else that you would like to tell us about Jada's diary?
I would just like to say, I really put a lot into it. I put my heart and my soul and tears and laughter and everything into it. So it's kind of like my baby. I'm really excited that, she's finally out into the world. And, I think it's a good read for anyone who, has ever been through anything, which is pretty much all of us, right? We all have things in our lives that we've experienced, but I really do think, my purpose for writing this is, just helping other women and people just know that, life is okay. We're going to get through whatever it is that we have to get through as long as, the mindset is there and we keep pushing and we keep trying for another day, it's going to happen. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay. And what's your social media?
You can find me on Instagram at journeywithjo_. On Facebook, Journey with Jo as well. And then on my website is www.journeywithjo.com.
Thank you. And what do you like to do when you're not writing?
Well, when I'm not writing, I love to cook because I love to eat. So I like to do that. Pre-COVID, definitely, I was an avid traveler. So that is actually where the Journey with Jo name came from. I have a blog, and I was blogging everywhere I went. I've been to over 40 countries. Majority of them solo. So I'm a solo budget traveler. So that's something that's a big part of my life and who I am, and like being able to go to another part of the world and learn a new culture and language and food and people is really really something that is a big part of who I am.
Yes. And you said you're a reader as well. So what type of books do you like to read?
So it depends. I like reading fiction. So
Okay.
sometimes, I'll pick, urban fiction, Eric Jerome Dickey and, books like that. But then I also make sure I balance out myself with nonfiction as well. Also because I'm in education, I do like to read books that, have to do with, just history of education, but also, like best practices on, teaching our children and, historically, there's a lot of things that history can teach us in terms of how we educate our students today, especially our Black and brown babies that we know like just, need something different from what has been happening historically and traditionally. So I like to balance myself out with that so that every year I'm growing in my practice. But then after I read a book like that, it's like, okay, now it may be time to go to 125th Street and buy a book on the street and get my urban fix.
Yes, definitely. Okay. Do you have a favorite book, like a favorite adult book?
Well, my favorite book is the autobiography of Malcolm X. I've read that book probably about 5 or 6 times. The first time I read it was as a teenager, and it's truly one of my favorite books. The Short and Tragic Life of Robert Park is also another one of my favorite books. It's a really, really great story about a young man from Jersey who had a short and tragic life, but he overcame a lot of adversity and just powers that be and being still caught up in the society that he was in. Unfortunately, his life ended early. So those are definitely two of my favorite books. But I'm so grateful, we're in this digital age. Like I'm constantly finding new things on Audible that I subscribed to a couple of years ago. And every now and then I have to go because I never canceled the subscription. So I have so many credits and I'm like finding new authors and new things to listen to. So that's always cool.
Yes. And now they have a lot of free books as well. So, well, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.